The Consciousness of Trees is a book about the evolution of trees and consciousness on this planet. The story looks at the creation of our planet in the Hadean Eon 4.5 billion summers ago, how water plays a part in the existence of life and therefore is an integral part of the story of consciousness. All of this is explored through a notional consciousness of trees, each geographical era explained through the voice of a tree. This is their story, their mythology of being. There is a tradition in Japan called onsen. This is what we in Europe know as spa baths. Japan is probably the most geologically active country in the world. The ground trembles every day. The landscape is made up of huge ridges of mountains and volcanoes, and out of the sides of these stones pours piping hot water, filled with minerals and luxuriant to the touch. These mountain hot springs are tapped and bathhouses are built, which are now become resorts effectively. My favourite onsen is one I've called the Temple of the Trees. I try and go there once a month at least when I'm in Tokyo. I wash and clean myself with the wooden basins and hot taps. No one gets into an onsen dirty. That would be truly offensive to others. You clean yourself fully first. There are 3 baths all looking out onto a valley border by steep tree-clad slopes. I spend an hour and a half sitting in contemplation and allowing all the stresses of the worldly life simply evaporate from my soul. One afternoon in the early summer, probably in 2022, I was watching the birds flying across the valley from tree line to tree line. It's been decades now that within my own consciousness I have recognised birds as dinosaurs. They just are. I'm always in awe at them, and I watch and study them wherever I go. I can understand the language of the UK's blackbird. I hear starling pretty well, and robin and wren and bluetit are easily understood on a basic level. The crow family always fascinate with their undoubted intelligence, and since I was a teenager, I have always asked, where does a bird fly from here to there? And where do they think they're going? What do they think they're doing? Once you start to think about birds in this way, the world of nature really opens up to you. Too many people live a whole life in a 14.5 billion summer universe on a 4.5 billion summer planet without allowing their consciousness to grow beyond the meaningless and the trivial. What a wasted opportunity. You only get the one chance. Why waste it on complete human rubbish? As the crows flew over the trees on the mountainside, I started to think. Well, no, not think, more like perceive. It was as though I was watching a movie. I wasn't thinking, I was just being. Then the words came into the voice inside me. These trees have watched life evolve beneath their branches. Those black cawing dinosaurs are very old friends. These ancient mountains have held trees beyond the memory of any animal. We are the consciousness of trees. Then I just listened. Every time I return to what I call the Temple of the Trees, I just sit and listen to them talking to me. Everything in the book, every structure of its form, key lines in the poems, that all came to me sitting in the onsen water, staring out at the dinosaurs in the trees. Okay, some may say projection, some may say delusion, but really I don't care. All I know is that in the Temple of the Trees, if you sit still and be silent, if you can silence the voices of the day which plague our lives inside our heads, if you can allow the water to seep its warmth into you, then in my experience, you can hear the trees. The poetry came to me. I sit and I hear the lines. I believe the first time it was, We are the consciousness of the trees, the seek of our roots, our touch of leaf, ancient before your eating ways. That was the opening line from which it all began. I was just sitting there and that just came into my head just like that. I wondered why poetry, but then realised, what else would a tree communicate with? Words swaying like leaves in a warm summer breeze. And so it was decided, when the words in the book were coming from the trees, they would be delivered in the form of a poetic saga. It just made sense. I started to write in the summer of 2022, and to be honest, whilst I had always loved trees, I grew up near a forest, I actually knew very little about them. I'm a historian who specialises in mythology and its role in the human psyche and how that role impacts upon our histories. I've spent 40 years researching, writing academic pieces with disciplined referencing. I love knowledge and education and learning. So when I started to write, I began to research my topic and soon became absolutely captivated by the history of the earth, the evolution of plants, and the role of water in our history. Everything that is in the book about these sciences is referenced, and academic papers and journals are offered for those who want to delve deeper. Trees are just the most fascinating subject. They are really just tall plants. They evolved a structure based on a chemical design which gave them the physical strength to rise above other plants in search of their food, sunlight. The story of the plants coming ashore as lichens and mosses, and so enabling the first amphibians and arthropods to leave the ocean, is in the consciousness of trees. But one of the surprising discoveries, which I just loved, was the idea broached in one academic paper that it was the shade afforded by the trees that allowed animal evolution to really take off, because it protected the early animals from the sun's radiation. So they thrived and they developed and they grew. You read stuff like that and you think, yeah, that makes sense. And so you look at trees in a different way. The more you look, the more amazing they become. The more you acquire knowledge, the more you realise that how you looked at trees before was utterly wrong. In this, the title, The Consciousness of Trees, speaks to our own increasing awareness of the trees, of what they are and how wonderful they are and how they are to be respected. It's our consciousness of trees that grows. As I uncovered the history of their evolution, I discovered history within the geology. All of this is in the book. I wanted to create a work which could be read on multiple levels. On every page there is something to learn. In every poem there is something to learn. Some of the learning will not even be noticed because it's embedded within the narrative. Your water has been many things before you. All your ancestors are in the memory of your water. You live within the tears of Babylon, and Salix cries your history. That's from the saga of Salix Babylonica. All the trees are given their Latin names, so the sagas are all named after, like this one, the saga of Salix Babylonica, which is the weeping willow. So there you are, everybody's learning that the weeping willow is called Salix Babylonica. It's in the text. And this is the saga about the relationship between water and consciousness. And of course, Salix Babylonica, the weeping willow, is clearly the tree to tell this story of the relationship between water and consciousness. It begins with the story of how water came to our young planet and how all life is part of that water. This is science, and in the text, beyond the sagas, it's all referenced. So, that is what I can tell you about the last 3 years writing The Consciousness of Trees. In 2026, I'm releasing it in part via Substack, whilst I organise the publication of the book, several spin-offs. I'm so lucky to have this work. I'll show you a little bit more. This is from the saga of Ulmus Procera, and it's about the Ordovician geological period and the trees that grew there. Ulmus Procera is the English elm. So here is what the saga of Ulmus Procera starts with. These were the days of the tribes, Imai de Gwyneth, Falhirath Haf. 40,000 summers, maybe more, in bone-laden soils the land had dreamt. In wooded stockade, Ordovices sang their histories, and then fell slaughter to Agricola. We see it all from our stone-slabbed beds, in which our dead still live, soft bodies made hard in struggle to survive.